All right, so here we go, talking about the sequence and flow of a lesson. Now, it is super, super important to be able to meet the architecture of accomplished teaching, the way the National Board wants you to do this, that you are able to follow that type of lesson plan. So I'm going to show you, this is Tracey's take on this. It's not the only way, it's just a way for any of you that are like, what, I don't understand, what do I do? Let's look at this from a general standpoint, and then we're going to try to attach feedback statements to it. So the first thing you're doing is actually planning. We'll go back to this in a minute. Then you're teaching. Then you've got to make sure you have differentiation, instructional materials, and a reflection. Now, this document is going to be in a PDF right below. So you're going to be able to pick this document up. Don't think you have to write all this super, super quick. So when you think about where do I even begin? And look, you've got to have two different formats. So both formats, or all three, either a whole group, small group, or one-on-one, can fit into this framework. That it doesn't mean it's too similar because you're using the same framework. You're going to adjust the breadth, the depth and the breadth by different strategies and things. So in the beginning, you must teach from your state standards or your national standards. You must understand and know the big ideas or the essential questions that you're going to ask. If you're not familiar with this, this is backwards design. Understanding by design, or backwards design. You've got to have instructional objectives. So those have verbs. You need to see your Bloom's taxonomy and make sure that it's not the lowest level of knowledge and understanding, but it moves above. Even kindergartners can go above knowledge and understanding. But that doesn't mean you can't have any knowledge and understanding. I'm not saying that. But you don't want everything they're doing just to be identifying, where you can't analyze because everything's either right or wrong. If everything in your video is just right or wrong, then there's no analytical value. And then you've got to plan for assessment. Now, are we going to be able to see the assessment in everybody's video and you get from the beginning to the end of the full lesson? No, you're only submitting 15 minutes of your lesson. But you're talking about in your written commentary, you're planning and you're showcasing that what you are doing is in a sequence and a flow to meet goals and have students be impacted by that. So that looks like these three parts. Whether we see it all or not, you still need to plan for it. How are you going to engage them and hook them? Doesn't matter if it's whole group, small group, one-on-one, they're going to be different, but these are some ideas to think about. What are your step-by-step procedures to meet these goals and goals/objectives, whatever you call them? This might be an I do, we do, you do type setup. You might call it teacher-directed instruction, guided practice, independent practice. You guys call this, lots of different things across the country. So you need to have an order and you need to be following that within this lesson framework that you're going to be filming. And then you need to wrap it up. You need to review things. Again, that wrap up may not be on the video. It's okay, but you've planned it. You're able to talk about it. You're able to visualize it. You're able to see it so that you can connect it. You can link it. You didn't necessarily see it, but I'm going to link it and tell you this is what I know, because the wrap up is going to help you with the reflection in the end. You have to differentiate. You must know your students, and they want to know about the students. Are you differentiating with the content? Are you differentiating with the process that they have, with the product, with the learning environment, where they sit, who they sit with? You don't have to use them all. But when it comes to the national board, they want to know that you are recognizing equity, fairness, and diversity, that you are providing for equity, fairness, and diversity, and that you're able to give them examples of equity, fairness, and or diversity. So you've got to plan for it before you turn on the video camera, so that when you're looking for it in your writing, you're going to be able to find it. And instructional materials, you really want to look at instructional materials that are going to showcase impact on students. A lot of times teachers will push in a lesson plan so that the assessor can see the whole of it. Now, if your lesson plan is 3 and 4 pages long, you're not going to put 3 and 4 pages of that lesson plan. You might put in the pages that talk about the assessment, the formative assessment that you're doing or something, because that might be after the video, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. Instructional materials offer power and evidence for you and the assessor. And then in the end, you must have reflection. And reflection comes from these types of questions that I've bulleted here for you. You are reflecting on both their learning and your teaching toward the objectives and the standards. All right, so if you don't do this process, or if you say to yourself, as oftentimes candidates say to me, but Tracey, I've already written everything, I've already said it, I don't have anything else to say, then you need to remember that tree that I just showed you in the last video, that tree where the widest amount of evidence is found at the bottom, which is reflection, and then you've got the significance and analysis in the middle. Those are the pieces you really want to make sure you push in. You don't want to run out of steam at the reflective part. You want to make sure that the reflection is there. You have to reflect at the end. So when does reflection happen? It happens after the instruction. So you're not going to plan reflection before the instruction. You're going to reflect after the instruction, but it's here on the sequence and flow because it's on the helix for architecture of accomplished teaching that you have to reflect. So you can't just finish the lesson and the lesson's over and you never think about it again. You have to reflect at the end. So the more you do this process and think like this and make sure that you are the standards that the National Board has set for you through this teaching, the more natural this is going to become. You just are this. You're no longer who you used to be, because you just think like this. You're just, I don't know exactly how to say it, but you're just changed. You're completely changed. So let's look at this inside of a very bare, very probably bad Google slideshow. I'm so sorry. It's just so wide. I just threw this together really quick. This is exactly what I just showed you in that PDF document. Here's your planning, that first part. And I've put a feedback statement at the bottom. This is a feedback statement that several people have been getting. And it says, you may wish to provide clear evidence that demonstrates your ability to apply appropriate pedagogy to facilitate classroom and or small group engagement between students and with you. So in this case, actually, that probably doesn't fit there. That probably fits on the next slide. But we have to really know our goals to be able to then push pedagogy, which is your strategies. Those are your procedures, your strategies, your techniques that you're using to engage the students. But also another reason why I know I put it on this slide for you is the students have to know the goals too. And they have to be using them. It can't be foreign knowledge to them. We should be hearing them inside of your video. They should be using the verbs. They should be knowing exactly what it is that they're working toward. And that creates true engagement, true student-centered understanding and learning. And so if you don't have essential questions and big ideas that the kids are answering, and you don't have the verbs in your objectives that they know what they have to master, then how are they truly going to be engaged? When it comes to teaching, the one we just saw really kind of goes into this block. And these two provide clear evidence that you develop and deliver relevant learning sequences and use diverse instructional strategies to engage all students. So diverse strategies, if you fill this out for video 1, video 2, you fill this exact same thing out, the format's going to be different. The way you engage them, the instructional strategies will be different. The way the learning environment looks will be different. The learning sequence will be different, but it can still follow the same framework. It's just if you don't have a learning sequence, it doesn't seem to connect, then it becomes an activity and not a lesson. And we don't want activities. Activities is not what we want. We want a full lesson. We want to see you structuring lessons. And I honestly don't even know. I was in college I graduated in the early 90s, and they like really taught us to write long form lesson plans. I don't know if they even teach that anymore, but I learned that. And then in middle school and high school, I learned how to diagram sentences. So that's how I really understand how to cut the fluff out of sentences from diagramming them. Whoop, it's telling my age here. Anyway, back to the paperwork at hand. The feedback statement about demonstrating your ability to apply the appropriate pedagogy to oh, there it is. I put it on this page too. So it goes here. This is you're picking out pedagogical strategies, processes, or procedures. So there are more feedback statements. I've only plucked a few. I just quickly plucked them. But where would they go when it comes to this planning of lessons? Here in differentiation, you may wish to provide clear evidence of your ability to foster a supportive, stimulating, and productive learning environment in which all students are encouraged to participate. So just think if Tracey is an IEP student who is on the spectrum, where am I going to be on this chart here? There's Tracey. Oh, the learning environment might have to be a little different for me because I'm on the spectrum and I'm not really comfortable with other people working in groups. So my product might be a little different that I get to put together, or the process that I get to follow, but I'm still going to be engaged. I'm going to be stimulated. I'm not just going to be left to listen and not participate. That's where differentiation's coming in here. And then instructional materials, I didn't put a feedback statement there. Friends, there's plenty more feedback statements. Again, I just hurriedly did this for you this morning. And then in the reflection, you may wish to provide more consistent and convincing evidence of insight into your future instructional practices. Do you see how that fits with this practice of reflection? You may wish to provide more consistent and convincing evidence that you are able to describe your own teaching practice and reflect on instructional decisions. So many times we're able to describe beautifully, but we don't necessarily reflect on why we chose what we chose and how we're going to move that into the future and in what ways it could have been better. So that also goes to analysis, the analysis part of the tree that I talked to you about in the last video. All right, so the planning must happen first, and it must happen in a sequence. And then you're probably going to want to write your 2 pages of planning. And then you're going to want to do your teaching. And then you're going to want to come back and you're going to want to analyze how well they're learning to your goals that you set and how well you're teaching it, how well you're performing as a teacher with those strategies, procedures, techniques, yada, 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 and the impact. So we are going to have another video here that I'm going to film, and that's really going to be around how to see the difference in a 2 writing with probably more description and a 3 writing with more claims, evidence, things like that, and where assessors might get hung up. Okay, I don't have all the answers, but I just like to share my knowledge and my opinion, and I'm trying to persuade you to make different choices if you didn't make these choices before or you didn't know. You know, we always do better when we know better. I'm the same way. That's why I follow candidates that didn't see fireworks more closely than I follow those with fireworks. Those people move me and help me and support me to help you better than the ones that saw fireworks. All right, I'll see you in the next video so we can talk about analytical versus descriptive commentary.